Rama Rama Hare. Although Ram Navami has already passed, the topic for the next few days is going to be about Lord Ramachandra. Of course, one can speak about the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world at any time, and it's appropriate. But the theme here is lessons from Ramayana. There's many, many, many. Of course, there's a storyline, but within the storyline, there's lessons, and there's lessons upon lessons, and there's so many things to learn about life from Ramayana. And for this evening, it's the offense of Dvivida to Lakshmana, because we're going to learn a bunch of things about Dvivida and about specifically the consequence of offense. And the offense is not light. It's very heavy. We know scripturally, we should know scripturally, sins are very bad. Worse than sins, more detrimental even than sins, is aparad. Aparad is, the consequence of aparad is like a stain that no matter how much you scrub, it doesn't go away very easily. So best to avoid offense. And especially, don't offend Lakshmana. One of the teachings about the role of Guru as taught in Valmiki Ramayana, or Ramayana, is the function that Hanuman and the function that Lakshmana played in the manner of Guru. From Chaitanya Charitamrita, in order to understand about Lord Nityananda, who is also Guru in relation to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's a whole discussion about the function of Balaram. Balaram similarly performs the function of Guru unto Krishna. Specifically, the Guru, one of the principal functions of Guru is to reveal the Lord, to give the Lord, reveal and give both. Balaram does that with Krishna very clearly. Nityananda does that with Lord Chaitanya, and Lakshmana does that with Lord Ram. We're going to hear something further about Lakshmana's role as the Adi Guru, but offense to Guru is taken even more seriously, even more seriously than offense to the personality of Godhead. That is to say, the personality of Godhead can take lightly offenses to himself, but he doesn't take lightly offenses to his representative. And Dvivida did that. So for most of us, we're more familiar with Krishna's pastimes, like Krishna book. Certainly I'm more familiar with Krishna's pastimes than Ramchandra's pastimes. So I know of Dvivida because there's a whole chapter in Dvivida getting KO'd by Balaram. But prior to Dvivida appearing in Krishna's Leela, he was present in Ramchandra's Leela. the same Dvivida, not only by name, but the same person. That means there are certain living entities that live for a very long time, like an exceptionally long time, and he's one. They're called Chiran Jivas. They live for a very long time. It's the same Dvivida from Ramchandra's pastimes that appeared in Krishna's pastimes. And both Dvivida and his brother, Minda, they were brothers, they were sons of the Ashwini Kumaras. And during Ramchandra's pastimes, they served as ministers to Sugriva. And they were great devotees of Lord Ramachandra. The history from Valmiki Ramayana is, at one point in time, the demigods all assembled and offered prayers to Lord Vishnu because they and the whole universe was being harassed by Ravana. Ravana had his plan to attack the kingdom of heaven. In fact, he succeeded. He could not only travel to Swarga, but his son got his second name from his mystic power being able to defeat Indra. So he took the nickname or the second name Indrajit, but that wasn't his firstborn name. So he was a universal terrorist. Very, very, very powerful. And the demigods wanted relief from his harassment, and so they approached Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu agreed to appear in the world where Ravana resided, in this earthly realm, and finish him. He also requested the Devas to help him by begetting children or offspring, such that the offspring they created would have powers like their demigods' powers. And then to combinedly mass army could deal with Ravana's mass army and defeat. He just basically gave them some service to do. Because Ramchandra displayed he didn't need anybody's help. 14,000 soldiers single-handedly, and he destroyed, etc. in Janastan. So the parents of the two brothers, Ashwini Kumaras, they accepted, along with many other demigods, they accepted the role of producing offspring. Minda and Dvivida were those offspring. These two Ashwini Kumaras, they're also twins, and they're directly sons of Vivaswan. And their function wasn't exactly that of a demigod, but they were royal physicians amongst the demigods. And Dvivida and Minda became their sons during the time of Pandu. They were also the fathers of Nukula and Sahadev in the womb of his wife Madri. So one of the places that we hear about them is in connection with the leap to Lanka, when it was found by Sampati that Sita was in fact, because he could see 800 miles away, that she was in a garden or grove in Lanka. So the Vanaras were very, very enlivened to have that confirmation. And they wanted someone to go and inform Sita, don't harm yourself, Ram is coming, we know where you are, and hang in there, basically. And verify that, in fact, she's there and safe, because Sambati's word is one thing and verification is another. So their Angada made a request of the Vanaras who could jump 800 miles? Thank you very much, those of you that are moving forward, because people come a little late sometimes. So they were going around and saying, how far can you jump? This is from Kishkindakanda towards the end. After hearing what Angada said, the foremost of all those monkeys began declaring their jumping ability, one after another. Gaja said, I can jump 80 miles. Gavaksha said, I can jump double that, 160 miles. Minda said, I'm capable of jumping 480 miles. The powerful Dvivida declared, I can undoubtedly jump 560 miles. And how do you measure how many miles he can jump? But that's what it says. Now that he couldn't make it. And Angada said, I could jump the full distance, but I don't think I could jump back, which isn't good enough. He had to come back. The first time we hear about Dvivida is not much mention, but there is mention. As a minister, he and Minda were ministers to Sugriva. In this painting, we see the friendship, the handshake of Ramchandra and Sugriva. And then next to Lakshmana, that's Hanuman, of course, with his club, and behind are Minda and Dvivida, ministers of Sugriva. So specifically, the offense it took a while to find out specifically what the offense was, because it's mentioned again and again. But there's three things. One of them is right here. When Sugriva was first meeting Ramachandra, the advice of Minda, the advice of Dvivida, was pay maximum attention to Ramachandra. The other fellow with him, you don't need to pay so much attention to him. Neglecting Lakshman. Speaking not so nicely about Lakshman. Disrespecting the representative of Ramachandra instead of respecting the representative of Ramachandra on an equal level with Ramachandra. And the teaching goes like this. You're going to see this slide twice. When you make an offense to a Vaishnav, one of the consequences, the anartha that arises in the heart is bhakti becomes diminished, and then one becomes susceptible to bad association. Say it positively. Bhakti can protect you from bad association. I'll say it again. It's a different way. One question I get a lot is, in the workplace, there's bad association. So how do I protect myself from bad association? Because the tendency is, sangat sanjayate kama. You develop tendencies like those with whom you intimately associate. And I'm so many hours a day in the workplace with people that have bad habits, and they speak in certain ways, and the modes of nature they're conducted by isn't the highest, and it's not sadhu sangha. So how do I protect myself from asadhu sangha? The simple answer is bhakti. However, if you make an offense, not just to the people in the workplace, but if you make offense because in this situation, the bad association that Dvivida yielded to was Narakasura. We'll hear some further about how all of that happened. But further anarthas arise due to the first of anartha that arose due to Vaishnava offense, and that leads to further offense. It's so don't do it in the first place. And if you do it, then you had a problem. Don't yield to continuing the problem. In Ram's Leela, there's a lot to learn about these two. They're present in the Vaikuntha realm. Let that sink in a little bit. From Bhakti Sandarbha, here's the following cut and paste quote. The Avarana, or covered deities, you'll hear that word multiple times, like Minda and Dvivida, in worship of Rama, are Nitya Siddhas, dwelling in the Lord's eternal abode. There are others, however, jivas, who are endowed with some of the Shakti of the eternal associates like Minda and Dvivida, and are called by the same name, to help Rama or other avatars when they appear on earth, though Rama and other residents eternally in their spiritual abodes as well. So they continue, Dvivida and Minda continue residing in the spiritual realm, but an expansion of their potency enters into a jiva in this realm, and they may become known by the same name as the one that's eternally existing in the Vaikuntha realm. There's many examples of that. These jivas became corrupted. The jivas in this realm became corrupted. Minda associated with Vali, who hated the devotee Sugriva. Now, somehow Minda became a minister, but he associated with Vali, and therefore he hated Sugriva. Jiva Goswami writes, later, Dvivida associated with Narakasura, who hated the Lord. That's Krishna. This occurs because the Lord's appearance with devotees is mixed with elements of the material world. That is, jivas, because the worldly mind and Dvivida were invested with the Nitya Siddha's powers. They were invested with powers by the twin sons of Vivaswan, namely Ashwini Kumaras, but these two particular sons were also invested with powers from the spiritual world. Here's Lago Bhagavatamrita, different author. This is Rupa Goswami. Same message. Because Krishna is Swayam Rupa, it is stated in the Swayambhuva Agama, in the chapter describing the 14-syllable mantra, it's one of our Gayatri mantras, that Rama and Nrsimha are worshipped as the Avarana deities of Krishna. So there's the term again. What does that mean? In Krishna Sandarbha, similarly, the word Avarana deities are mentioned. They're specifically here, the Lord's surrounding deities. And there's a nice description of the same message from Jiva Goswami's commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam. So the quote from above, that's from Krishna Sandarbha. Jiva Goswami writes the same thing in the Bhagavatam. This is 1:10:1:19. This is the appearance of Lord Krishna chapter. So the Avarana deities are mentioned in principle. Chaturvyuha forms. Chaturvyuha forms, are Avarana deities to Krishna or Govinda in the spiritual sky. You all know what the Chaturvyuha, anyone not know who the Chaturvyuha deities are? You two boys, you look really absorbed in what we're talking about. You two boys. Do you know what the Chaturvyuha forms of the Lord are? Would you like to know? Okay. You've heard it before, but now you're going to remember it because I'm going to say it slowly. Krishna is Vasudeva. So Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. You've heard them. That's called there's four, Chaturvyuha, forms of the Lord. So in Goloka, in the spiritual world, as well as in the Vaikuntha realm, there's expansions. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. In Krishna's Leela on earth, who is Krishna's first wife? You two boys, remember? Rukmini, right? And the first son born of Rukmini, his name was, starts with a P, Pradyumna. So there's Vasudeva and Sankarshan, that's Krishna and Balaram. That's two of the four. And then Krishna's first son with Rukmini was Pradyumna. And Pradyumna's first son was Aniruddha. So there we have the four in Krishna's Leela. Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And we're going to hear some more about Aniruddha tonight, this evening. He has an important role to play. That's in Krishna's pastimes here. In the spiritual world, they're also there. In Goloka Vrindavan, in the topmost spiritual planet, the four. They're called Avarana deities of Krishna in the spiritual world. They exist in the spiritual world also. They exist in the Vaikuntha realm. Narayana also expands himself into these four forms in Vaikuntha. So what we're hearing, because we want to hear something about Dvivida and Minda. So in in the spiritual Vaikuntha realm where Ramchandra resides, is also known by the name Ayodhya. In the spiritual sky, the abode of Lord Ramachandra is known as Ayodhya. And these two, Dvivida and Minda, they're there. They're Avarana deities. So they're very special. And for the purpose of Ramachandra's pastimes on earth, a potency of these eternal associates are invested in or with a jiva. But they both became corrupted. Okay, here's a little bit further. This is commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he writes, partial expansions of both Dvivida and Minda participate in Lord Rama's earthly Leela, with the Lord's explicit purpose of teaching us the consequence of offense to a dear devotee of the Lord. That dear devotee is Lakshmana, and the empowered jivas, Dvivida and Minda, they remain in the Lord's earthly pastimes to teach the lesson of the consequence of offense. Here's a Ramayana question for those of you that like Ramayana. When Ramachandra returned to the spiritual world, how did he do that? How did his pastimes end? He invited all of his associates and they came with him, and he and they entered into the river Sarayu, and they just disappeared. But before he did that, he instructed 4 persons to remain behind. And they all had some service. Hanuman, for the rest of the duration of the universe, chant my glories. 2. Jambavan. Jambavan was present in Ramachandra's Leela. He had some nice service for him. When I appear again as Krishna, you're going to be a very essential personality involved in the Shamantaka Jewel Leela. You know the Shamantaka Jewel story, right? Not sure? You don't remember? It's a nice story. Another evening we'll tell the Shamantaka Jewel story. Jambavan gave the Shamantaka Jewel to Krishna. But before he gave the Shamantaka Jewel to Krishna, he fought with Krishna for 30 days inside a cave. And he couldn't defeat Krishna. Then he realized, what am I doing? This is Krishna. Anyway, the 2 others that stayed behind, there were 4. The 2 others were Dvivida and Minda, and the purpose of their staying behind was in Ram's Leela to teach the lesson. Remember the theme of what we're doing, the lessons from Ramayana. Don't offend Lakshmana, please. Don't offend anyone, and especially Vaishnava Aparad and even amplified as Guru Aparad. Please be very careful, because you can have some problems. The protection, the bhakti protection for each of us will be diminished, and one becomes susceptible to bad association. In the section of Ramayana where the big battle takes place, Yuddha Kanda, Yuddha means fighting, Yuddha Kanda, Minda and Dvivida are very heroic. They have many, many things. Ravana and one of his big generals, Meghanatha, they ganged up on Dvivida, but they couldn't defeat him. However, Balaram was able to defeat him. We'll hear that little Leela shortly. That's chapter 67. Balaram slays Dvivida gorilla. And so chapter 67 is going to get a bunch of attention this evening. Here's Jiva Goswami's commentary. Though Dvivida associated with Sugriva, the cause of his present foolishness was his friendship with Naraka. We'll hear some more about Naraka. As a result, he became extremely evil-minded. The cause of this bad association was his pride in his strength, by which he did not respect Lakshmana. We'll hear the detail of that disrespect. It was more mental than the verbal was. He spoke wrongly to Sugriva. Don't give attention so much to Lakshmana. Give maximum attention to Ram. Minda and Dvivida are 2 forms worshipped as Avarana deities when worshipping Rama. They are situated in Vaikuntha. The Minda and Dvivida mentioned in this verse are persons endowed with their Shakti. So there's symmetry amongst our acharyas. There's no 2 opinions. They just have different ways of saying the same thing. So here's a nice painting of one of the sons of Bali Maharaj. And Bali Maharaj had 100 sons. Bali Maharaj, we know who Bali Maharaj, we just been reading about him in the morning Bhagavatam class, 8th canto. Bali Maharaj was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. You know who is Prahlad Maharaj, right? And Prahlad Maharaj had 1 son. And his 1 son had 100 sons. So, in the story of the meeting of Usha and Aniruddha, which is a different chapter, the painting is showing there's the 1,000 arms of the eldest son of Bali Maharaj. Eldest son of Bali Maharaj, his name was Banasura. Banasura. So Banasura was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. And Banasura had, with his so many arms, he was playing drum while Lord Shiva was dancing, and he was very, very pleased with Banasura, his devotee, and he offered Banasura any benediction he wanted. A little proud, Banasura. He said, I want you to guard my capital city. Stand at the gate and guard my capital city. Not such a nice request, is it? But that's what he did. And so it ties into the following. So Banasura had a daughter, and the daughter's name was Usha. You know the story, Usha and Aniruddha. You two remember who was Aniruddha? Aniruddha was the son of Pradyumna, who was the first son of Rukmini and Krishna. Aniruddha was known as a very heroic and powerful warrior. A very interesting Leela. The daughter of Banasura, named Usha, had dreams. Only in her dream, but in her dream, evening after evening, she'd have a rendezvous with this very beautiful young man about her age, and they did romantic things with one another in her dreams. And Usha had a dear friend, confidential friend, the kind that you don't share things with everybody. With confidential friends you share with. She shared with her friend Chitralekha about these dreams. And Chitralekha was a mystic. First, her name Chitra indicates she was really good at painting and drawing. Chitra, like the comic books, Chitra. You've seen comic books? Chitra comic books? That's what it means. It has nice illustrations that go with it. Chitra. Chitralekha said, I can draw pictures of men here and there, very beautiful men, and you tell me if I hit the right one. So she made many, many, many drawings of many, many, many attractive young men, and none of them were the right one. But when she drew a drawing, the exact likeness of Aniruddha, Usha blushed. That's him. That's him. And so Chitralekha had some other mystic powers. She said, I can bring him here. So she flew through the air from her father's, from Banasura's capital. In the dead of night, Aniruddha was asleep. There's a nice painting of this. She picked him up from bed in the middle of the night and brought him into Usha's room. Now, in Vedic culture, ladies they're in the inner portion of a house or a palace, and no men are allowed. And not only he was allowed, he was staying in her room. And they were enjoying with one another this way, that way, and the attendants to Usha, they saw symptoms that said she's up to something. Didn't say what they saw. They reported that to Banasura. So in addition to the benediction that Banasura received, that Lord Shiva would guard his palace, he gave him a certain weapon, Pashupat weapon. And it was with that Pashupat weapon that although Aniruddha was such a powerful Vishnu Tattva empowered person, great fighter. He was subdued by Banasura and put in jail. He didn't kill him. He put him in jail. Word that that Aniruddha is in Banasura's jail went to Ugrasena in Dwarka. Ugrasena amassed the entire Vrishni dynasty army and confronted Banasura to release Aniruddha. Now, that was the cause for a big battle. And there's paintings of the big battle we'll see shortly. So, Lord Shiva had to be involved because he's the protector of his devotee, Banasura, his devotee. And there's a big battle between the Vrishni dynasty warriors and Banasura, Lord Shiva, and their warriors. And Krishna directly confronted with his Sudarshan Chakra Banasura and chopped off all but 4 of his 1,000 arms. Lord Shiva then came and offered prayers to Krishna, spare his life. Krishna said, not only I'll spare his life, but his pride was invested in part in his arms, and now his arms are gone. So he'll be okay. Thank you. And he'll live for a long time and be your nice devotee without all that pride that he had before. So that's what's the painting on the left. Here's a description of the verse. Bana was the oldest of the 100 sons fathered by the great saint Bali Maharaj, who gave the whole earth in charity to Lord Hari when he appeared as Vamanadev. Banasura, born from Bali's semen, became a great devotee of Lord Shiva. So here's a little summary. This slide you'll see again also. This is from the beginning of chapter 2. This is the Banasura story. He had demoniac tendencies from childhood. Banasura, by his bad association, corrupted Narakasura, who is described 3 chapters earlier. Narakasura was corrupted by the association of Banasura, and then Dvivida was corrupted by the association of Narakasura. Chain reaction. Don't associate with asuras. And stay protected from asuras by bhakti, by avoiding offense. So who's Narakasura? This is chapter 59. Narakasura is the son of the earth, Bhumi, at the occasion when Lord Varaha rescued the earth. When Varaha rescued the earth from the Garbhodak ocean, in that contact between earth or Bhumi and Varaha, a child was born named Bhoma or Bhomasura, who later became Narakasura. So the son of Dhatri, the earth himself or herself. And there's a reference from the 3rd canto, Bhagavatam. Just as in the 1st canto, chapter 3, there's details about incarnations. 1st canto, chapter 3, Bhagavatam. Similarly, in the 3rd canto, chapter 3, where this is mentioned, Narakasura became an asura because he had the bad association of Bana. We already talked about that. This is in the same section of 3rd canto. Birth is not always the criterion of goodness. This is Prabhupada's writing. Unless and until one is trained in the culture of good association, one cannot become good. So though he was born by Bali Maharaj, he became bad through association with Naraka. There's the painting of Bana. On the right-hand side, there he is with his 1,000 arms. He is in direct combat with Krishna, who's using his bow and arrow. And down below, there's Balaram. He is bashing somebody with his club. On the far left, that's Lord Shiva was hit with a yawning weapon, so he didn't have to be so much involved in the fight. Down the lower right, that's Ganesh, and in the upper left, that's Kartikeya, and there's Lord Brahma watching the fun. Now we're back to this chapter 67, which is the story of Dvivida being smashed by Balaram. Narakasura is described as the friend, Narakasya Sakha, of Dvivida, to show that although Dvivida was the minister of the great devotee Sugriva and an associate of Lord Ramachandra, he became corrupted by the bad association of Naraka, and this caused anarthas to arise in him. But further anarthas, because the initial anartha was the bad association, was the reaction for an offense Dvivida committed when he disrespected Lakshmana, due to being proud of his strength. So here's the scene. When Lakshman was struck by the serpent arrows of Indrajit, he was writhing on the ground, etc., etc. He became unconscious, etc., etc. And Hanuman was sent to get herbs to cure him. The Ayurvedic doctor that was there on the scene recommended certain herbs and they can cure him. Hanuman was told to get the herbs. He went to get the herbs. In different versions, it says Gandhamadana mountain. In some versions, it's Mahodaya mountain. But he couldn't. He had to deal with Gandharvas who were protecting the mountain, and he had to battle with the Gandharvas. He couldn't find the herbs, so he brought the whole mountain. But while Lakshman was going through all of that, in his mind, he didn't say anything specifically, but in his mind he's thinking, weakling. He was criticizing. Dvivida's mind, he became offensive to Lakshmana, thinking him weak for acting in that way. Moreover, then there's a third reason. He was a competitor to Lakshman. Envy. Because he, Dvivida, wanted special attention from Ram. And all the special attention was always going to Lakshmana. So he was feeling envious. And in his mind, he was, I'm strong, he's weak. He's competing against the guru-like representative of Ramachandra. 3 strikes and you're out, right? For baseball. I consulted Hari Parshad Prabhu, because he's very capable of finding remote things sometimes in scripture. What was specific the offense that Lakshmana made against, that Dvivida made against Lakshmana? He found this in the same commentary, same verse. Vangsidhara's commentary writes, one night, while the war with Ravana was going on, Dvivida went inside Lanka and forcibly attacked some Rakshasis and disrobed them and went so far as to touch their genitals. Knowing this, Rama exiled him from the army. When Dvivida prayed for forgiveness, Lord Rama said that your liberation cannot happen as a devotee. You will have to wait until Dwapara Yuga, and only then you can get liberated when you're killed in the next incarnation. Interesting. And then Hari Parshad Prabhu's comment is that although it doesn't say exactly what his offense against Lakshmana is, it mentioned that he was very proud of his strength, and because of his pridefulness, he was doing wild things like entering into Lanka and having affairs with the Rakshasis, because he thinks he's a big guy, considering others weaklings. On the same topic, note it's the same verse from the same chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is Sridhar Swami's commentary. When Sugriva was going to offer his hospitality to Sri Ram and Lakshmana, a Vanara by the name Dvivida, one of his ministers, gave wrong advice to Sugriva not to worry about paying respect, any respect, or importance to Lakshmana. Just focus on Ram. Instead of upacharam to Lakshman, he committed apacharam to Lakshman. Therefore, Dvivida became the friend of the hellish planets, meaning he was fit to enter hell to be punished. So he directly offended Lakshman, thus Bhagavata Apacharam. He goes on, same commentary. And for the same reason, Sugriva, who yielded to Dvivida's wrong advice. What was the wrong advice? Don't pay so much attention to Lakshman. He yielded to it. He got heavily beaten by Bali in the first round of fight as a reaction to not properly just listening to bad advice. Don't properly respect Lakshman. He got whooped. Because he was only concerned about Ram, he did not care for the blessings of Lakshman, Ram's devotee. He had to go through this. When he ran and came back to Ram, then Ram asked Lakshman to garland Sugriva so that Ram can differentiate between Bali and Sugriva, but the truth is, Ram wanted Lakshman to bless Sugriva, and for Sugriva to realize his mistake towards Lakshman. To get the garland, he had to bow down a little bit. That was good for him. And Lakshman forgave him. Now, this is Sridhar Swami's commentary. We don't normally hear that, but our acharyas understand things that we don't necessarily understand. And it's Sridhar Swami's explanation. I often wondered, maybe you have too, it wasn't just a garland, it was a garland of vines. And when you're wrestling till death, what's a garland of vines going to do? It's going to come loose and fall off. And how is Ram going to be able to distinguish from that kind of a garland? So it wasn't really so much the garland to distinguish, it was to help overcome the offense. And then he also mentions, Sridhar Swami mentions what this previous Acharya mentioned. When Dvivida was engaged in the service of Lord Ram and battle with Ravana's army, during the nighttime, Dvivida surreptitiously left Ram's troops and spent nights, plural, with the women of Lanka, the Rakshasis. Rama came to know of Dvivida's behavior and took him out from the service and sent him away. And in Dwapara Yuga, only after being killed by Balaram, he attained Swarga. Further, same purport, same chapter, same verse from 10th Canto Bhagavatam. This is all about Dvivida. Vishwanath Chakravarti compares the fall of Dvivida and Minda to, they're both Shaktivesha forms of Minda and Dvivida who are Nityasiddhas dwelling in the Lord's eternal abode to that of Jai and Vijay. So we often hear the Jai and Vijay narration is exceptional. It's not, people don't fall from Vaikuntha, but it was a special arrangement. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur doesn't say they're equal, but there's a comparison. The Minda and Dvivida of the Vaikuntha realm with Ram eternally in Ayodhya in the spiritual sky, their empowered representatives became corrupted, similar to us, to Jai and Vijay. Here's a little further explanation about offense. This is from Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. As you know, there are 3 sections of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu: Sadhana Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti, and Prema Bhakti. In the Bhava Bhakti section, he writes, Rupa Goswami writes, 2 types of grave offenses: offense to a dear devotee, offense to Krishna himself. Krishna Preshta Aparad. Even real bhava is destroyed. So it's possible for one on the bhava platform to make some offense. And that's what happened with Minda and Dvivida. And when those offenses are made, bhava is going to change depending upon the seriousness of the offense. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes the following commentary on that verse from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Bhava will be destroyed by aparad to the dearest devotees of Krishna. An example is Dvivida the monkey, a follower of Ram, by aparad Lakshman. By aparad to Lakshman, his bhava disappeared. By medium aparad, bhava becomes bhava bas, and if it's very slight, then the particular rasa may be diminished. So here's the slide I said you'd see twice. Offending a Vaishnav makes you susceptible to bad association, that makes you susceptible to having further anarthas that are out of control and further offense. Here's a reference to an Upapurana. What's an Upapurana? Upa means near. So they're minor. There's the main Puranas, and then there's Upapuranas. So it doesn't carry the same weight. But a reference in Upapurana is called the Kalki Purana. Writes, after Lakshmana had killed Indrajit, he was affected by a fever, as he had killed a Brahmana. That Indrajit's grandfather was the Brahmana Vishrava, and the Brahmana Vishrava, his grandson, was also a Brahmana, as was Ravana, a Brahmana by birth. Immediately, Sugriva's minister Dvivida wrote a mantra and put it in front of Lakshmana. Immediately his fever was gone. An elated Lakshmana granted Dvivida a boon. The monkey said he would like to obtain death at Lakshmana's hand, which was granted. But that Lakshman's, in the next... appearance of Lakshman, Balaram. here, I mentioned this already. The final words spoken by Lord Ram to Hanuman just before he ended his Leela by entering into the river Sarayu with all his associates from Ayodhya. Ram asked Hanuman, as well as two other Vanaras, Minda and Dvivida, to stay behind, as well as the king of the bears, Jambavan. There's a nice photograph of the river Sarayu. And on the right side, that's the city of Lanka. Here's another painting of, or photograph of the place where Lord Ramachandra entered the river Sarayu. And by the side of the river, there's a nice temple of Sita, Ram, Lakshmana, Hanuman by the side of the river Sarayu. So now we're going to fast forward to the Dvivida that we know more from Krishna book. We heard that Dvivida, he lived for a long time. There was a purpose behind it, to show the consequence of offense. And the consequence of offense was he became in the bad association of Naraka. And when Naraka was killed by Krishna, Dvivida took a vow to take revenge against the death of his good friend Naraka. So he became a rival enemy of Krishna. Bad program. And to exhibit, he went through the area very near to Dwaraka, because Dwaraka was an island. The area near Dwaraka is called Anarta, which is different than Anarta. There's a little story. Prabhupada named one of his female disciples Anarta. And she was like, what? And then the explanation was, no. They're not the same word. That's a tract of land very near to Dwaraka that was very dear to Krishna. So that's the place where Dvivida went and made havoc. Once, Dvivida tore up a number of mountains and used them to devastate all the neighboring kingdoms, especially the province of Anarta, wherein dwelt his friend's killer, Lord Hari, or associates of Krishna. Another time he entered the ocean, and with the strength of 10,000 elephants churned up the waters with his arms and submerged the coastal regions, flooded everything. Very powerful, very, very powerful. Remember how powerful he was in his fight with Ravana. Ravana couldn't defeat him. Ravana and another general couldn't defeat him. Very powerful. Just as a wasp imprisons smaller insects, he arrogantly threw both men and women into caves in a mountain valley and sealed the caves shut with boulders. Bad guy. Vishnu Purana tells the same detail. He took a huge form at will. He looted and destroyed the crops of the kingdom by going around and just smashing crops. The mischievous ape climbed a tree branch and then revealed his presence by shaking the trees and making the kila kila. If anyone even knows how to imitate that sound, you can, but whatever gorillas do, that's what he did. Balaram happened to be there on one occasion. And when Balaram saw him doing all this, he hurled a huge rock. And the rock dodged, Dvivida dodged the rock. And then he ran up to Balaram and grabbed his Varuni beverage. That was too much for Balaram. So, battle between the two. In his chest, he punched him very hard. Dvivida was spitting blood and got knocked to the ground and became finished, as was promised, that Lakshmana in his next iteration would destroy Dvivida. So here's the summary of everything that we've been speaking about. Same slide as you saw before. First was Banasura. Banasura was bad from birth. Banasura gave his association to Narakasura, who became corrupted by Banasura. And then Narakasura, in turn, corrupted Dvivida. There's a little bit more, not so super essential, but a little bit more is one of Brahma's direct sons was Marichi, born from Brahma's mind, third canto. And Marichi had, Kashyapa, yes. Kashyapa was the son of Marichi, and he, Kashyapa, had married 13 daughters of Daksha. So Kashyapa and Daksha's daughters. And this same Kashyapa was present during the birth of Arjuna. So there's this reason for bringing this up is Kashyapa became the father of Hiranyakashipu, who became the father of Prahlad, and then Prahlad, and then Bali, and that further generation, Banasura. The reason for presenting this is right here. According to Bhakti Sandarbha, and it's also mentioned in Lagu Bhagavatamrita, that the birth of Prahlad and all of these events is during the 6th Manu, Chakshusha Manu. Virochana was Prahlad's son. Bali Maharaj had 100 sons. So the story of Banasura having combat with Krishna is how many Manus later? It's 1 Manu later. How long is the duration of Manu's life? How long does 1 Manu last for? 71 times the Yuga cycles. And how long is the Yuga cycle? Really long. A lot of zeros. So the time duration when all of this happened was big time duration past. Which means that some of the people involved in these pastimes lived for their long duration life, not ordinary entities. Here's the 8th canto Bhagavatam. In this Manvantar, that's Manvantar number 7, so Chakshusha is 6, Vaivasvata Manu is 7. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appeared as the youngest of all the Adityas, known as Vamana. And his father was Kashyapa, and Aditi was his mother. This is what we're reading in the Bhagavatam in the morning, Bali Maharaj. So this is the final slide. 6th canto Bhagavatam. Prahlad had 1 son, Virochana, whose wife gave birth to Bali. Bali begot 100 sons in the womb of Ashana, and Bana was the eldest. Later in the 8th canto, in this battle between the demons and demigods, which was during the Satya Yuga, the sun god fought with the 100 sons of Maharaj Bali, headed by Bana. So the sun god was involved in that big battle that we showed the painting of. Even now, Bali Maharaj engages in devotional service by worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the planet of Sutala. Correct? Where is Sutala? Down. Want a little lesson in cosmology? "14 planetary systems, 7 up, 7 down make 14. And the lower planetary, the very, very bottom is Rasatala. And just above Rasatala is Sutala. And that's where Bali Maharaj is today, engaged in devotional service. That's from the Bhagavatam 5th canto. 8th canto. Bali Maharaj is still living in Sutala with vast opulence and will be Indra during the next Manvantar. Wow. What happens when there's a change of Manus? Here's what happens. It's like when someone becomes president, they appoint different cabinet members. They have a whole new set of administrators for the president. Manu works the same way, or we work the same way as Manu works. That is, a new Manu, and he appoints different people in very important posts to maintain the universe. So one of those important posts is Indra. Bali's going to become the next Indra, according to 8th canto Bhagavatam. We'll have a long wait to find out if that's going to happen. Another commentary, this is all just to give us some background picture of these personalities. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, "Some, like Bali, have long life, but do not have good conduct or auspiciousness." Dvivida is one of them. Apparently Dvivida, Bali, and Banasura are all Chiranjivas in that they have a long lifetime. Bana was the one that corrupted everybody. He was bad. He corrupted Naraka. Naraka corrupted Dvivida. So I'm just pointing out that the same principle is being repeated, but some of these histories are, you have to be really, you have to read carefully in order to get the chronology, because it's one of the features of a Purana. They're not mandatory chronological. Mahabharata and Ramayana, they're in another category. They're histories also, but they're chronological. And generally speaking, they're focused on a certain person or group of persons, like the Pandavas in Mahabharata. Or in Ramayana, Ramachandra and his pastimes from beginning to end. So the Itihasas are like that, and Puranas aren't chronological. They're very logical, but not chronological. The stories, the histories, are meant to help us understand principles. Principles are in the Shruti section, and the Smriti section, they're helping us understand the Shruti section. Shrutis say the same thing Smritis say. There's histories to help us understand. And our acharyas, all of this is just to help us understand what's the lesson in Ramayana having to do with Dvivida and Minda, because they have their place in Ayodhya, in the spiritual world, in the Vaikuntha realm. And look what happened. So why did it happen? Ramachandra wanted to teach a lesson, and so through them he taught the lesson. Don't make offense. It can be really serious stuff. It's in our Vaishnava literature. And then there's many nice examples, and this is a Ramayana example of the consequence. That's it. with a lot of detail. And a lot of support from multiple acharyas, all giving, in some cases, giving different details of the sequence of events, but the essence is all the same. So let's see if there's some discussion. Yes.
So my question is that usually when we go stages of bhakti, like from bhajana kriya and then to anartha nivritti, so the anarthas are coming out at that stage. So how would we differentiate it is due to an offense or is it due to because you were at the stage where you need to go, so that we can be more careful that okay, this offense is coming due to offending a great Vaishnava. So
The reaction is coming.
yeah, the reaction is coming due to the great offense to the Vaishnava.
It seems like you've answered your question within the question itself. Meaning, if there's a pattern of good conduct and all of a sudden some misfortune comes, is it arising from some offense? Is kind of like what the question is. Is that what you're asking? Yeah, the answer is yes. It's possible there's something else going on. Could be sin, because that also had. But for devotees, that's not the reason, because sinful reactions are neutralized by bhakti itself, unless one slackens in bhakti. And then sin can take over. But aparad is so serious that even bhakti is going on, it can be corrupted through the medium of bad association. In this case, through the medium of bad association. We become susceptible to life around us if our bhakti becomes compromised by offense. So you or we could assume if something like that starts to happen, good chance, there's not a guarantee that's the cause, but good chance, something back there. And we don't know what it is. But it's really serious stuff. And then next comes, okay, that's the why, whatever now, what to do. Read Madhurya Kandambani, what to do. How to overcome the reaction of an artha arising from offending a Vaishnav. But in quick summary, you go to the Vaishnav and beg forgiveness. If they don't give their forgiveness, you give it some time, and you go back again, you go back again, you go back again. And if they don't give their forgiveness, then only you just take shelter of the holy name sincerely. Because that's a good starting point. Supposing there's offenses that we don't even know about, that was also asked. I'm anticipating the questions. Prabhupada was asked that question, and his answer was, therefore, every day we recite the prayer. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindobhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. You know the verse? Good. I think he was saying it. You know the one? Can you say it for us? Vanchakalpa. Very good. And so it can be chanted mechanically, it can be chanted sincerely, because the chanting of it is important, and the sincerity is also important. Because unknowingly, we can step on somebody's toe, or they may misunderstand our intention and think we did something hurtful when our intention was just the opposite. The perception can have its consequence. What do? You make sure your intentions are correct, and you continue in the mood of you bearing with the consequence of the reaction to the aparad, or the circumstances of life that arise from the offense, and you work your way through the bhakti process. So a nice place to go if you want to read more about that or understand more, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's book, little skinny book, Madhurya Kadambini. Madhurya Kadambini. If Krishna permits, I have a plan. When I go to China, I'm going to discuss that book with all the Chinese devotees. They have an a Chinese translation, and that's in early October, in case you like Chinese. And then in Thanksgiving weekend in Houston, I'm going to discuss the same book in English. It's an important book. It's the stages of bhakti and how to progress. And there's the big obstacle section, the anartha nivritti section. Very important. Best is to avoid it. And then you deal with it if it happens. Something else? Yes? You want to take that little microphone? Thank you.
So one of the slides, it was mentioned that Dvivida was killed by Lord Balrama. He went to Swargalu. But usually when Balram kills someone, at least the person gets liberation. So I was a little confused.
Well, there's the Ramayana version of the destination of souls that are killed, and there's the Bhagavatam version of the destination of souls that are killed. So if you're a Bhagavatam follower, he went back to the spiritual world. And if you're not, he went to Swarga. Because that's the description in Ramayana. Because they speak, or Valmiki speaks in that way, or writes in that way. Here's a detail, just to illustrate this little exchange on this topic. According to Ramayana, when Ramachandra left Ayodhya after the battle was over, he left Lanka after the battle was over, he was visited by two personalities before he got on the Pushpaka Vimana and returned. Lord Shiva came. Lord Shiva offered prayers because Ravana was a devotee of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva came to offer prayers to Ramachandra. And Dasarath descended from Swarga and then offered his benedictions to his son and then returned to Swarga. So there was a question. After Swarga, did he go to Vaikuntha? Because he has his place in Vaikuntha, right? And the answer, after some research, was the same pastime, in addition to Ramayana, is discussed in Mahabharata. And in Madhvacharya's Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnayas, which is a very detailed commentary on Mahabharata, Madhvacharya confirms, he came from Swarga and he went back to Swarga. Now this is where there is a different idea of elevation of souls and their ultimate destination and things like that. It's a detail. But the language and the conceptions that accompany the language, or the language that accompanies the conceptions, they differ. I hear you. Our host wants to say something.
When Dasharatha descended from Swarga, was that a spiritual body or that was a gross body?
Doesn't say. What do you think?
The spiritual body without senses.
What's the spiritual body doing in Swarga anyways? Swarga means material body. So this may mean it doesn't I'm not the Acharya writing the commentary, but there are situations where similar to Dvivida and mind as a jiva who bears some of the potency of an eternal associate, a Nityasiddha. Nityasiddhas don't belong in Swarga. So what's the by inference, not by Shabda Praman, but by inference, that Dasaratha that was in Swarga is an empowered representative of the eternal associate of Ramchandra in the Vaikuntha realm, the Nityasiddha Dasarath. Otherwise, what explanation can one offer? Is that okay? It happens. Persons that are in the spiritual realm expand some of their potency and invest some of that potency in some jiva, and they perform activities in some cases bearing the same name, in some cases not bearing the same name. This is high technology, spiritual technology.
So Ali Maharaj was a pure devotee of the Lord.
He sure was. But he was born in a Daitya family.
And then repeatedly I heard the term that Banasura, he was born with the qualities.
Yes.
And also he didn't get any training and education.
Right.
So is that also something?
This is exactly what Prabhupada wrote in his purport about Banasura. Exactly what Prabhupada wrote. What you just said is what Prabhupada wrote.
So is that again something for us to understand?
Of course.
Just because we are, we have to really give the good training and education to our children.
Yeah, just be a good parent that, do your sadhana and produce children. Training, please. Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I bought into that one when I was going to have children. It's essential. It's imperative. And the converse can happen. Bad can become good, and good can become bad. Training and association. You have something? Yes. Okay. Stretching. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You have to wait. He's got the microphone in the front.
Thank you for the wonderful class. So, I have one question. So, why Asuras will get liberated when they're killed by a Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though they have done so many bad things?
Why not? The Supreme Lord is powerful. I mean, Putana. She not only got liberated.
Do they not to go through again the karma what they did?
You know the answer to that. The Supreme Lord is all powerful. He doesn't need anybody's help to do anything. That's the answer. And you can go on saying it again in 18 different ways, and he is all powerful. He can do anything he wants. He's all pure and all powerful. So just by his touch, anything can happen.
But Krishna mentions that one has to go through the karma, even like if
No. But that's if you don't surrender. In the case of Putana, for example, she did some service. It was evil, but she came as mother, so she got the post of mother. So just see how kind is Krishna, and how powerful is Krishna. Was she bad? She was bad, through and through bad. But she came as a mother. And that much he accepted. Okay?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Now all the way in the back, you got to come forward, I think. You can speak strong, but the recording isn't going to hear it. So, but speak strong.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Maharaj, question on Bali Maharaj's how he dealt with Lord Vamana. So we know he had a demoniac mentality.
Who did?
Bali Maharaj.
No. He had a demoniac guru, but he didn't have demoniac. He had bad association, but he had the right spirit.
Okay, he conquered over all the three, and then he was like,
But he was tied up, and he didn't protest. You know that.
Yeah, after he.
But so what was inside? You're saying he's demoniac. I'm saying he's a devotee. And the Lord and Vamana wanted to show everybody, just see what a devotee is. He knew what was inside. Outside is one thing. Inside is another thing.
My question was, Maharaj, until he knew that this is Lord Vamana, Sukracharya was telling him that, this is Vishnu.
Don't surrender to Vishnu.
Yeah. But yet he said, no, I'll honor my words, and he...
Because he's a Vaishnav. He's a worshipper of Vishnu. So I'm just contradicting, or you're giving evidence that's contradictory to your statement. He's not a demon. He's a Vaishnav. Even against bad advice. Now, we're speaking about Guru Aparad. Shukracharya is his seminal guru. That's Sukra means, seminal guru. But without qualification to guru. So he wasn't really guru. He was the other kind. Here comes back to Mike.
Maharaj, thank you so much for that wonderful class. And my just quick question is related to Prabhuji's, how we see a certain attitude of Bali Maharaj. Can that be justified? He was what he was because of what Indra became against him. He was like that towards Indra, not to other personalities. That made Lord Vamandev came. Can it be said that way?
It's a stretch, but yeah. I mean, because a Vaishnava is not retaliatory. A Vaishnava on the caliber of Bali Maharaj is not going to seek retribution. So Indra's issues are Indra's issues. Not necessarily the other, but he gets the heebie-jeebies about it. All kinds of people who think he thinks maybe they want my post. That's Indra's problem. It's not the person's problem. Yes. Last question.
So Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I just wanted to know, you said that there are other Avarna deities.
There are other Avarna deities, yeah.
Avarna deities. So can you give an example in like Krishna Leela?
Well, it is these two. They're from the Acharyas, the Chaturvyuha, and these two, Minda and Dvivida, of the spiritual world, because they're deities in connection with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you want other examples. I can't think of. I spent a lot of time with research with all of this, and there's not a lot of other examples. I don't know of any other examples. It's mentioned in relation to these two. There must be more, or likely there's more, but I don't have examples.
And one more question to that for the specific topic you mentioned is that because we consider these 5 deities as one supreme personality of God, as in like Krishna, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Ramachandra, Balram. So when it was mentioned that Ram and Narasimha they were Avarna.
Yes, that's another example. I was just thinking of that as.
So then, how are we like reconciling? He's the same person.
Who?
Krishna and Lord Ram.
Well, yeah, different and non-different. Here we go again. Just like this morning class in the temple. Achinta Beda Beda Tattva. No, emphasize the non-difference. Emphasize the difference. Simultaneously both.
Thank you, Maharaj. Let me know.
Now, there's a reference in Padma Purana where the relation between Rama, Nrsimha, and Krishna are mentioned. Apparently this is one of them. They, Rama and Nrsimha, are Avarana deities in relation to Krishna. I don't know if it's the same section or in a different section. Padma Purana says, these two forms of the Lord, they exhibit nearly the fullness of Bhagavan, while Krishna maintained the position of being the source of both. But those three, Rama, Nrsimha, and Krishna, are in a special category. I can't remember the Sanskrit term. Paravasta, I think that's the name. They're in the same category. Forms of the Lord.
Thank you, Maharaj.
That's it. You okay? You want something?
There is one question from online.
Online.
This is from Vrishabhanu Das. Not sure if this has been answered in this class, but is there a reason why Mindha developed bad qualities like Dvivida?
Well, the only mention it's made is he fell into the bad association of Vali. He had a friendship with Vali. And I commented, while that statement is there, it's a little weird that he is a minister of Sugriva and has a friendship with Vali. Because the loyalty was split. It's either the good guys or the bad guys. So he was a minister to Sugriva, but he had a friendship or a something of a close relationship with Vali, and thereby he became corrupted. I can't embellish. I can't give you more. Sorry, Vrishabhanu. See the Prabhupada ki? Jai.